March 8, 2026. 37 days after Nancy Guthrie vanished from her Tucson home, the FBI has made a statement that changes everything. The black gloves found in the desert, the gloves with blood that investigators tested and initially dismissed, those gloves may belong to the masked man who took Nancy. The DNA on those gloves does not match anyone in the FBI's national database. But the gloves themselves, their appearance, their style, appear to match what the masked suspect was wearing when he was caught on Nancy's ring camera. This is not a solved case. This is a new lead, and it raises a terrifying question. If the DNA doesn't match anyone in the system, who is this man? And where is Nancy Guthrie? This is the Day 37 breaking update on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie. DNA evidence, gloves that may belong to the suspect, ransom notes demanding millions in cryptocurrency, and a family that has vowed, "We will pay whatever it takes to bring Nancy home." Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Here at Forensic Disconnect, we unlock the cases that deserve to be remembered, breaking investigations as they happen. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old when she was taken from her home in Rancho Vistoso, an upscale neighborhood in Tucson, Arizona. It happened in the early morning hours of February 1st, 2026. Her front door was found wide open. Blood was on her porch and walkway. Her pacemaker had last synced with her iPhone at 2:30 a.m., and ring camera footage captured a masked man at her door, wearing gloves, carrying a backpack, with what appeared to be a gun holster on his hip. For 37 days, investigators have been trying to identify this man. They have analyzed thousands of hours of video. They have interviewed hundreds of people. They have deployed cutting-edge technology to search the Arizona desert for Nancy's body, and they have followed every lead, no matter how small. But the masked man remains unidentified. Until now, there has been no physical evidence directly connecting anyone to Nancy's abduction. Until now. On February 11th, 10 days after Nancy disappeared, a couple walking in the desert approximately 1 to 3 miles from Nancy's home made a discovery. They found a black glove lying on the ground. The glove appeared to be ripped or torn, and there was what looked like blood on the wrist area and on the pointer finger. The couple immediately reported their find to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The glove was collected as potential evidence. It was photographed, it was cataloged, and it was sent for DNA testing. For weeks, there was no public update on the results of that testing. Then, on March 6th, Sheriff Chris Nanos made a statement that seemed to close the door on the glove as evidence. He said that the DNA on the glove did not match Nancy Guthrie. He said it appeared to belong to a restaurant worker in the area. He said it had nothing to do with the case. The glove, it seemed, was a dead end. But on March 8th, the FBI made a statement that contradicted the sheriff's earlier remarks. According to the FBI, the gloves, yes, gloves plural, were found a few miles from Nancy's home. The DNA on the gloves was tested. It did not match any entries in CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system, which contains millions of DNA profiles from convicted offenders and arrestees across the United States. The DNA did not match Nancy. It did not match anyone in the database. But here is the critical detail. The FBI stated that the gloves appeared to match those worn by the masked person seen in the ring camera surveillance footage. The style, the color, the appearance, they match. This is a significant development. It means that the gloves found in the desert may have been worn by the suspect. It means that the DNA on those gloves may belong to the man who took Nancy. And it means that this man, whoever he is not in the FBI's database. He has no prior criminal record that would have required DNA submission, or if he does have a record, it is from a jurisdiction or time frame that did not include DNA collection, or he has somehow managed to avoid being entered into the system. But the fact remains, his DNA is unknown to law enforcement. The DNA on the gloves is also described as being connected to a restaurant employee. This detail is confusing and has not been fully explained by authorities. It is possible that the gloves were handled by multiple people, resulting in mixed DNA. It is possible that the restaurant employee touched the gloves innocently, perhaps finding them and moving them, and that their DNA was also deposited. Or it is possible that the suspect works at or has a connection to a restaurant in the area. The details are murky, but what is clear is this. The gloves appear to match the masked man. The DNA on the gloves does not match anyone in CODIS, and investigators believe this is significant evidence. Let's go back to the ring camera footage. On February 1st, at approximately 2:30 a.m., Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera captured an image of a man approaching her front door. The man was wearing a mask that covered most of his face. His eyebrows were visible. He appeared to have a mustache. He was wearing what looked like a gun holster on his hip. He was carrying an Ozark Trail backpack, a brand commonly sold at Walmart. And he was wearing gloves, black gloves. The footage is grainy, taken in low light, but the gloves are visible. They appear to be dark in color, possibly black or dark gray. And now, according to the FBI, gloves matching that description have been found in the desert with DNA on them that may belong to the suspect. The location where the gloves were found is also significant. They were discovered 1 to 3 miles from Nancy's home. This is consistent with the theory that Nancy was taken into the desert. The Sonoran Desert surrounds Tucson on all sides. It is vast, harsh, and unforgiving. If someone wanted to dispose of a body, the desert would be a logical choice. It is remote. It is difficult to search. And it is a place where remains can be hidden for months or even years. The fact that the gloves were found in the desert and not in Nancy's neighborhood or along a road suggests that the suspect traveled into the desert after taking Nancy. It suggests that he may have disposed of evidence there. And it raises the terrifying possibility that Nancy's body is also out there, somewhere in that vast expanse of sand and rock. Investigators have been searching the desert for weeks. They have used a signal sniffer, a device designed to detect the electronic signature of Nancy's pacemaker. The theory is that if Nancy's body is in the desert, and if her pacemaker is still functional, the signal sniffer might be able to locate it. Helicopters have flown overhead. Drones equipped with thermal imaging cameras have scanned the landscape. Cadaver dogs have been deployed, and ground teams have walked through the heat, searching for any sign of Nancy. So far, they have not found her. But they have found the gloves. And if those gloves belong to the suspect, they may provide the break in the case that investigators have been desperately seeking. DNA evidence is powerful. It can identify a suspect with near certainty. It can link a person to a crime scene. It can prove presence and contact. But DNA is only useful if there is a comparison profile. If the DNA on the gloves does not match anyone in CODIS, it means investigators need another way to identify the person. One option is investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG. This is the technique that has been used to solve cold cases in recent years, including the identification of the Golden State Killer. IgG involves taking the DNA profile from a crime scene and uploading it to public genealogy databases, such as GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. These databases contain DNA profiles from people who have voluntarily submitted their DNA for ancestry research. If the suspect has relatives who have used these services, their DNA may be in the database. Investigators can then build a family tree, tracing the DNA back through generations, narrowing down potential suspects until they identify the person who left the DNA at the crime scene. IgG is a powerful tool, but it takes time. It requires high-quality DNA samples. It requires cooperation from genealogy databases. And it requires skilled analysts who can interpret the genetic data and build accurate family trees. The FBI has not publicly stated whether they are pursuing IgG in Nancy's case, but given the circumstances, it would be a logical step. The DNA on the gloves is a lead. It may be the lead. And if IgG can identify the person who wore those gloves, it could lead directly to Nancy's abductor. There is also the possibility that the DNA will match the mixed DNA that was found inside Nancy's home. Investigators have stated that mixed DNA was discovered inside the house. It was submitted to CODIS and came back with no hits. If the DNA from the gloves matches the DNA from inside the house, it would confirm that the person who wore the gloves was inside Nancy's home. It would link the suspect directly to the scene of the abduction, and it would strengthen the case against that person once they are identified. But who is this person? Why is his DNA not in CODIS? There are several possibilities. First, he may have no prior criminal record. CODIS primarily contains DNA from individuals who have been arrested or convicted of crimes. If the suspect has never been arrested, or if he was arrested for a minor offense that did not require DNA collection, he would not be in the system. Second, he may be from outside the United States. CODIS is a national database, but it does not contain profiles from other countries. If the suspect is a foreign national, his DNA would not be in the system unless he had been arrested in the U.S. Third, he may have a criminal record from a time before DNA collection was standard practice. In the 1980s and 1990s, DNA profiling was not yet widely used in law enforcement. If the suspect committed crimes during that era and has not been arrested since, his DNA may not have been collected. There is also a darker possibility. Some experts have suggested that the suspect may have law enforcement or military training. The use of a mask, gloves, and what appeared to be a tactical approach to Nancy's home suggests planning and knowledge of how to avoid detection. The theory that he may have used a Wi-Fi jammer to disable security cameras in the neighborhood also points to technical knowledge. If the suspect has law enforcement or military experience, he would know how crime scene evidence is collected and analyzed. He would know to wear gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. He would know to wear a mask to avoid facial recognition. And he might even know how to avoid leaving DNA, though in this case, it appears he failed. The blood on the gloves suggests that either he was injured or that Nancy's blood got on the gloves during the abduction. Either way, it is a mistake, and it may be the mistake that leads to his identification. As the DNA investigation continues, other aspects of the case are also developing. One of the most disturbing elements is the ransom notes. Multiple ransom notes have been received by the Guthrie family and by media outlets. The notes demand payment in cryptocurrency. The amounts have varied, but some reports suggest demands as high as $6 million. The notes have included graphic descriptions of what will happen to Nancy if the ransom is not paid. They have set deadlines, and they have been sophisticated enough to concern both the family and the FBI. On February 7th, Savannah Guthrie released a video statement in which she said, "We will pay." She made it clear that the family is willing to do whatever it takes to bring Nancy home. The $1 million reward offered by the family is separate from any ransom demands. The reward is for information leading to Nancy's recovery or to an arrest and conviction. The ransom, if the family chooses to pay it, would be in addition to that. But here is the problem with ransom notes in cases like this. Many of them are hoaxes. Opportunistic individuals see a high-profile case and try to extort money from a grieving family. The FBI has not confirmed that any of the ransom notes are legitimate. In fact, the 2 deadlines mentioned in early ransom notes have passed with no consequences. This suggests that those notes were not credible. But new ransom notes continue to arrive, and the family, desperate for any hope, must take each one seriously. TMZ recently reported that they received a ransom note that they described as highly sophisticated. The note demanded cryptocurrency, though not Bitcoin. It included specific instructions, and it contained graphic threats. TMZ forwarded the note to the FBI. Whether this note is credible or whether it is another hoax remains to be seen. But the fact that ransom notes continue to arrive more than a month after Nancy's disappearance suggests that someone or multiple people believe there is money to be made from this tragedy. Another development in the case is the analysis of Google search data. Reports have circulated that someone in Arizona conducted Google searches related to Nancy Guthrie in the months before her disappearance. According to Google Trends data, searches for Nancy's Tucson address were conducted between June 21st and 28th, 2025. Additional searches for the same address were conducted on January 11th, 2026, just weeks before Nancy disappeared. Searches for Savannah Guthrie's salary were also conducted in December, and in early March, searches for maps and images of Nancy's residence were reported. These search patterns have led to speculation that someone was researching Nancy, planning the abduction months in advance. However, experts and Google itself have debunked the reliability of this data. Google Trends shows search interest over time, but it does not reveal who conducted the searches or from what specific location. The data is aggregated and anonymized. It is not evidence that can be used to identify a suspect. Furthermore, it is possible that the searches were conducted by journalists, true crime enthusiasts, or even people simply curious about the case after Nancy disappeared. The search data is interesting, but it is not actionable evidence. The FBI has not commented on whether they are investigating the Google search theory, but it is unlikely to be a priority compared to the DNA evidence and the physical investigation. On the ground in Tucson, the search for Nancy continues. The FBI has consolidated its efforts into a dedicated task force. 4 detectives and 1 sergeant are working full-time on the case, based out of the FBI office in Tucson. This is a shift from the early days of the investigation, when nearly every detective in the Pima County Sheriff's Department was involved. The consolidation allows for more focused, efficient work. The task force is analyzing the 10,000 hours of video footage that has been collected from Ring cameras, traffic cameras, and other sources. They are tracking down the owners of the approximately 12 vehicles that were seen on camera in the area around 2:30 a.m. on February 1st. They are interviewing hundreds of people, and they are pursuing every lead, including the DNA on the gloves. Volunteer organizations have also offered to help. The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search and rescue group, submitted a 41-page search plan to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The plan includes the use of drones, 25 human remains detection canines, and ground search volunteers. The plan calls for grid sweeps of the desert, using thermal imaging and scent-specific canines to search for Nancy's body. However, Sheriff Chris Nanos has expressed a preference for professional searchers rather than volunteers. He has stated that while the community's concern is appreciated, volunteer efforts can complicate the investigation by contaminating potential crime scenes or finding items that turn out to be unrelated to the case. The glove that was found in February is a perfect example. It generated significant investigative resources, and while it now appears to be connected to the suspect, there was a period of confusion about whether it was relevant. Multiple false leads drain resources and distract from the core investigation. On March 4th, several people were reported to have entered Nancy's home with a metal detector. They were searching for jewelry or small items that may have been dropped during the abduction. This suggests that investigators are looking for any physical evidence that could provide clues about what happened inside the house. Nancy's home has been returned to the family, but it remains a crime scene in the eyes of investigators. Every detail, every fiber, every trace of DNA is being analyzed. Savannah Guthrie's emotional state has been a focus of public attention. On March 5th, she returned to the Today Show studio in New York City for the first time since her mother's disappearance. She was greeted by her co-workers with hugs and tears. She described the visit as a step, a small movement toward resuming her normal life, though she made it clear that her priority remains bringing her mother home. Savannah has been living in a state of suspended reality, continuing to work, continuing to be a mother to her own children, all while not knowing if her own mother is alive or dead. The strength she has shown is remarkable, but the toll is visible. In her public statements, she has thanked the public for their prayers and support. She has asked people not to stop hoping, and she has made it clear that the family will do whatever it takes to bring Nancy home. The $1 million reward announced by the family generated an immediate response. According to the FBI, approximately 1,500 tips were received in the days following the reward announcement. More than 750 of those tips were deemed credible. This is a significant number. It suggests that people are paying attention, that they are thinking about the case, and that they may have information that could help. The FBI is working through each credible tip, following up, verifying information, and pursuing any lead that could bring them closer to finding Nancy or identifying the suspect. But 37 days in, Nancy has not been found. The masked man has not been identified. The DNA on the gloves is a lead, but it is not a solution. It is a piece of the puzzle. And there are still so many pieces missing. Where is Nancy? Is she alive, as Sheriff Nanos has said he personally believes? Or is her body somewhere in the desert waiting to be found? Who is the masked man? Why was Nancy targeted? Was this about Savannah, as some theories suggest, or was Nancy targeted for another reason? Was the suspect acting alone, or were there accomplices? And if there were accomplices, who are they? The theory that Nancy was targeted because of her daughter remains strong. Former FBI agent Tracy Walder has suggested that someone obsessed with Savannah Guthrie may have decided to harm Savannah by harming her mother. Savannah is one of the most recognizable journalists in America. She has been in the public eye for years. She has covered major stories, interviewed presidents and world leaders, and become a fixture in millions of American homes. With that level of visibility comes risk. There are people who become fixated on public figures, who develop obsessions, who cross lines. If Nancy was targeted because of Savannah, it would explain the planning, the precision, and the apparent premeditation of the crime. Another theory is that the suspect has local knowledge. The desert areas around Tucson are vast and difficult to navigate. Someone unfamiliar with the area would struggle to find their way, especially at night. But someone who has lived in Tucson, who knows the desert, who has perhaps hiked or driven through it, would know where to go. They would know where remote areas are located. They would know how to avoid being seen. Forensic expert Joe Scott Morgan has emphasized the role of local knowledge in this case. He has pointed out that Nancy is not a random victim. She is the mother of Savannah Guthrie. For someone to target her specifically, they would likely have known who she was. And if they had local knowledge, they would also know the area well enough to execute the plan. Retired Lieutenant Randy Sutton has suggested that multiple perpetrators may have been involved. The logistics of abducting an 84-year-old woman from her home, transporting her and disposing of her body are complex. It would be difficult for one person acting alone. There is evidence suggesting that someone may have been at the rear of Nancy's property. The floodlights at the back of the house had been broken beforehand. This suggests that someone approached from the rear while the masked man was at the front. If there were multiple perpetrators, there may have been a driver waiting nearby. There may have been someone scouting the area. And there may have been someone helping to carry Nancy or to dispose of her body. Multiple people means multiple opportunities for mistakes. It means multiple DNA profiles. It means multiple witnesses who might come forward. But it also means a more organized, more dangerous operation. The Wi-Fi jammer theory, which emerged in recent days, adds another layer of complexity. Multiple neighbors have reported that their Ring cameras and Wi-Fi connections went offline around 2:30 a.m. on February 1st. The FBI has gone door to door asking residents about these disruptions. If the suspect used a Wi-Fi jammer, it would explain why some cameras did not capture footage of the abduction. It would also point to technical knowledge and planning. Wi-Fi jammers are illegal in the United States, but they are available for purchase online. They emit radio frequency signals that interfere with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections. A jammer could disable cameras, internet routers, and wireless alarm systems within a certain range. The fact that Nancy's Ring camera did capture the masked man suggests that either the jammer had a limited range, or that it was activated after the man approached the door, or that it malfunctioned. Whatever the case, the Wi-Fi disruptions are being investigated as potential evidence of premeditation and technical sophistication. Forensic analysis continues on the DNA found inside Nancy's home. That DNA is described as mixed, meaning it contains genetic material from multiple people. It was submitted to CODIS and came back with no hits. If the DNA on the gloves matches the DNA from inside the house, it would be a significant link. It would confirm that the person who wore the gloves was inside the house, and it would provide a single DNA profile to focus on. Once investigators have a clean DNA profile, they can pursue investigative genetic genealogy, they can build family trees, they can narrow down suspects, and they can potentially identify the person who took Nancy. But all of this takes time. DNA analysis is not instantaneous. Building a family tree through genetic genealogy can take weeks or even months. Meanwhile, Nancy has been missing for 37 days. Every day that passes makes it less likely that she will be found alive. The desert is brutal. If Nancy was left in the desert without food, water, or shelter, she could not have survived more than a few days. The hope that she is still alive rests on the possibility that she is being held somewhere, that the ransom notes are real, that someone has taken her for a reason other than murder. But that hope is fading. Savannah Guthrie's statement, "We will pay," reflects the desperation of a family that will do anything to bring their loved one home. But paying a ransom is fraught with problems. There is no guarantee that paying will result in Nancy's release. Ransom demands in kidnapping cases often escalate. Once a payment is made, the kidnappers may demand more, or they may take the money and disappear, leaving the victim behind. Law enforcement generally advises against paying ransoms, but families are often willing to take the risk if there is even a slim chance of saving their loved one. The public has rallied around the Guthrie family. The $1.2 million reward has brought in hundreds of credible tips. People across the country are watching, hoping, and praying for Nancy's safe return. Memorials have been set up outside her home. Flowers, candles, and cards cover the lawn. Savannah and her sister Annie visited the memorial on March the 2nd, placing their own flowers and a card that read, "Though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much." The image of Savannah, always so composed on television, standing at her mother's home in visible grief, has touched millions. The case has also drawn comparisons to other high-profile abductions. The use of technology, the targeting of a family member of a celebrity, the ransom demands, all of these elements are unusual. Most abductions are not this complex. Most do not involve Wi-Fi jammers or sophisticated planning. The fact that Nancy was taken from her own home, in a secure neighborhood, with cameras all around, and yet the suspect has not been identified, is deeply unsettling. It raises questions about how safe any of us truly are. As the investigation moves into its 6th week, the FBI has emphasized that this is not a cold case. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer has described it as a red-hot case, with up to 100 agents and analysts working on it. The task force is pursuing leads aggressively. The DNA evidence is being analyzed, the video footage is being reviewed, the tips are being followed up, and the search for Nancy continues, but the clock is ticking. Every day that Nancy is missing is another day of pain for her family. Every day is another day that evidence degrades, that memories fade, that the trail grows colder. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, please contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI. If you lived in the Rancho Vistoso area and experienced Wi-Fi or internet disruptions on the night of February 1st between 2 and 4 a.m., please report it. If you recognize the masked man from the Ring camera footage, please come forward. The FBI has stated that the man is very identifiable despite the mask. Someone knows who he is. Someone has seen those gloves. Someone has information that could break this case wide open. A reward of $1.2 million is available for information leading to Nancy's recovery or to an arrest and conviction. Tips can be submitted anonymously. You can call the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, or the 88 Crime Tip Line. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She is a mother, a grandmother, and a beloved member of her community. She was taken from her home in the middle of the night by a masked man who left behind gloves, DNA, and questions. The gloves have been found. The DNA has been tested. And now, investigators are working to identify the person who wore those gloves. If that person is found, if the DNA leads to an arrest, it could bring answers to a family that has been living in agony for more than a month. Nancy deserves to be found. Her family deserves answers. And the person responsible deserves to be held accountable. Thank you for watching this breaking update. If you found this coverage informative and respectful, please subscribe to Forensic Disconnect for the latest developments in cases that deserve to be remembered. Hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below, but please keep your comments respectful. What do you think about the DNA evidence on the gloves? Do you think investigative genetic genealogy will identify the suspect? Do you believe Nancy is still alive? Let us know. And remember, this is not just a story. This is a real woman, a real family, and a real ongoing tragedy. Nancy Guthrie deserves to be found. Her story deserves to be told, and the truth, wherever it may be, deserves to be brought into the light.